Here we have verse 7 of the 8th chapter of the Gospel of John. We're in the midst of this dramatic moment in which the religious leaders have tried to set Jesus up by parading in front of him this woman who was taken in adultery. And they have been peppering him with questions now, wanting to know what his answer is. Moses had demanded that such a woman should be stoned. They want to know Jesus' opinion, and of course Jesus has been kind of blowing them off, at least for a while. He's writing with his finger to the ground as if to ignore them, in effect hoping that they'll just simply forget this and go away. And we hear in this particular moment that they continue to press the point. So we have hos, an adverb, means as. Da, the postpositive, soft conjunction, so but as. Epimenon. This is from epimeno. Meno means I remain or abide. Epimeno would be kind of an intensification of that, as they persisted would be the notion, continuing to persist, continuing, and then herotontes. This is from erotao. It means to ask a question, something like that, contract verb. This happens to be a present active participle. It's the masculine plural nominative. Is referring to the subject of this verb. So the verb itself, epimenon, is the third person plural imperfect active indicative. They were continuing. And then this participle, they continuing to ask, or continuing in an asking kind of way, outtone him. So they're persisting in putting the question to him. And finally we have Jesus now. Anakupsin. This is from anakupto. We had a form of this verb earlier, to lean over. This anakupto means to stand up or to straighten up. And so Jesus finally relents, straightening up. We have the idea here. This is the third person singular, aorist active indicative. So he stood up, kai, apenautois, and said, apen from lego, I say, third person singular, aorist active indicative, takes the dative and said to them, and then ho onomartetos. This is from the adjective that is a negation of the idea of hamartia, which is sin. This is anamartia, you might say, some form of that, although it's an adjective used here substantively, and so we would render it something like the without sin one would be a rough translation, or the one who lacks sin or has no sin. Humon, second person plural genitive, the one without sin among you or of you. Protos, the adjective. First, protos, ep. This is a contraction of epi, preposition. Takes the accusative in this case. Upon her would be the idea. Balato. Balato is the third person singular, aorist active imperative. Let him throw, of course, from balo. To throw or to cast. So this is the imperative of the third person singular. Let him cast a stone. Famous answer from Jesus, of course. Here he has been confronted with this situation, and his response is, okay, fine. The law of Moses requires that the woman be stoned, so the one who is without guilt among you, without sin, without fault, let him cast the stone. The problem, of course, here was that there was all kinds of violations of Jewish law at multiple levels. For one thing, where was the man who was a participant in this act of adultery? He's absent, of course, and the law would require that both of them be present. Also, you have certainly the very dubious motives of these people. They're really not trying to execute any sort of justice with respect to the woman as much as they have these malicious motives toward Jesus, and she's simply a pawn in this chess game that they're trying to implement toward him. And so their own sort of lack of bias, you might say, their own detached neutrality as adjudicators is very much in question. And it could very well be that there are some deeper significance to the question that Jesus is putting here, but certainly on its face, it was sufficient to make the point that these men were not willing to continue to pursue this particular line, having in a sense been bested once again by Jesus in his response.